Alexis AV Talk. Let's talk about workforce development. Alexis AV rocks. You're invited to the #1 event with Alexis Labroy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me on Alexis AV Talk. It's February. We're happy we're here. It's just past Valentine's Day, so hopefully everybody had a great holiday if you're into that. And I wanted to welcome my friend Aaron Udler. Aaron, hey, how are you?
Hey, pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a week for both of us, right? So um, just trying to hang in there and do some good things this week.
It's the week of Valentine's Day, so I feel the love. So thank you for having me.
That's good. That's good. That's always a good thing. Wanted to bring you on today to talk about workforce development and talk about Office Pro and talk about you and what you do there. I read your article that you posted back in December, I think, on NSCA site
hmm
about what you're doing with the organizations here in our area in Maryland, and reached out and was so happy that you said yes, you would want to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. There's a lot of really nice federal programs out there for workforce development, and we'll touch on that I think in a few minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, please tell everybody who you are, what you do, and how you got into the audiovisual technology arena.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me again. Yeah, so my background in AV is I worked for Infocom for 7 years, and to be honest, my dad owned an end user training company, but it mainly focused on Microsoft application end user training, mainly within the federal government here in the Washington D.C. area. The company was started in 1984. I've known about the whole company my entire life. I never had any interest in the company. I used to joke that I still don't, but it's my livelihood, so obviously I do.
Right.
Um, and we still have a lot of federal clients, and we teach them how to use Word, Excel, PowerPoint, SharePoint, and now Teams is super big, and OneNote and OneDrive and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
And one of the things I saw at Infocom when I worked for Infocom for 7 years, I used to sell trade show space, exhibit space, and I always saw a need for end user training after AV integrators would go in and do a video conferencing installation. And there'd always be a blame game going on, right? And the end users would ask for training, and they'd say, hey, integrator, teach me. And the integrator would say, sorry, it's not my job. It's not my tech. Go call the manufacturer. And the manufacturer would say, sorry, not my problem. Go call the integrator. So it was a blame game.
Mhm.
And while I was at Infocom, I ended up getting my MBA along the way, and left and went over to OfficePro. And at that point, it was just Microsoft end user training. But I saw that need for AV end user training, and I just kind of started it up one day, and it's like, hey, let's give this a shot. And I started calling up integrators and seeing if they would
Mhm.
try us out. And there ended up being a big integrator that had a client that was doing a Skype for Business rollout, and this was back in 2014. They said, hey, can you do the training for us? Sure. And then 2015 rolled around, and Microsoft Skype was integrating with Polycom Trios and Polycom Group Series and
Uh-huh.
restaurant touch panels and the whole 9 yards for very large pharma. And the same integrator said, hey, can you go teach these 5,000 people how to use all this great tech? And I was like, sure, okay. And then they said, hey, can you staff it for us? And we didn't know what staffing
Wow.
was. And it was like,
Yeah.
sure, we'll figure it out. And, literally, it was just another door that had opened. And we ended up, we have a good formula. We're a training company, but because we're so good at training people on how to use technology, we are able to translate that into recruiting, because we
Mhm.
can recruit people with good personalities and train them on the tech. So that's kind of how I got into Office Pro, in a nutshell, and kind of how we evolved as a company. One of my favorite stories is, I get asked all the time. I talk to kids on a regular basis, and they're like, hey, how'd you get into tech? And I like to give the example. When I was in college, I loved Napster, and I'd rip off music from Napster, and my teammates that I played football with would say, hey, Aaron, can you make me a CD? And, and I want these 25 songs on a CD. I was like,
Right.
sure. And I'd download all the music, put them on a CD, and hand it to them, and I'd make $10 or whatever it was for a CD. So that's one of my favorite stories about how I got officially into tech. And then just along the way, I started on the trade show side and eventually at Infocom, and you guys know the rest of the story from there.
I think it's great. I mean, I think everybody, it's so funny because one of the things that I talk a lot about is helping people find their way to our industry in a more deliberate manner, and not on accident, so all the folks who are, interested in music, so many people interested in music that have come into the industry and, needed something more stable, and they started working in an AV company versus being on the road or, I don't know. I feel like we all have a similar story about how we found ourselves here,
Yeah, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. We're all unique in our stories. It's all, for all of us, I think it's all random how we all got here.
Yeah.
At one point or another. And I think, I ended up going to a top business school. And I think what got me in was because my AV background and working for an association like Infocom.
Mm-hmm.
How many people have MBAs that are in the, AV space today? I think there's a lot more, but I think years ago, I don't think there were very many at all.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think things are changing and, and especially with what you're doing, there's, I've talked about, college and, you have a master's and how you can roll that into being involved in this industry. Do you need that to be involved in this industry even, is part of those conversations. Who are the folks that you are bringing into your staffing company to staff for some of your clients?
Yeah, great question. I hire people mainly based on personality, right? Especially for these entry level positions. That's, if you can find somebody that you want to go drink a beer with after work, that's the ideal profile of somebody you want to hire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they're coachable. I guess that would be the next piece of it too, right? Someone that's willing to learn, someone that's hungry. They have an interest in technology, especially consumer technology.
Mm-hmm.
One of my interview questions I ask everybody is, what kind of cell phone do you have? Right. And as basic as that sounds, there are a lot of people out there that just don't know. Well, if you're not involved with your tech, how can you work in tech, such as AV? I remember I hired a guy years ago and he had a flip phone. I remember being at a client site and this is before I even asked that question as part of my process. And I heard that old school flip phone ring.
Right.
He picks up his phone, he opens it up, and he's like, "Hello?" And I was like, "Jim, dude, like, you can't have that cell phone here at a client site. Come on, bro, we're a tech company." And so that became one of my questions long term, and it was surprising to see there's probably about 10 to 15% of the population that they just don't know what kind of cell phone they have. They don't even have a smartphone. They still have flip phones. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily because of budgetary. It's more of a fear of adopting new tech. So I love folks when I interview them and they say to me, I ask them like, "Hey, what kind of cell phone do you have?" "Oh, I have an Apple, 12. I have a Samsung S20 or whatever it is." I don't care what the answer is, but you got to know your tech.
Yeah. I guess that's a good question is, how can you teach other people how to learn technology and adopt the technology when you haven't upgraded yours or you don't know what yours is?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so,
Mm-hmm.
those are things we look for, when we interview. And again, personality is key. And then we teach them everything from, depending on whatever the client has, whatever the job is. So it could be a Cisco client, it could be a Microsoft client, it could be a Zoom client. Whatever it is, it's, we're manufacturer agnostic. So we train on every and all. I can't tell you how many times we've trained on, for example, the Kramer Via, the Immersive Solstice, the Crestron Air Media, and so on and so forth. You guys get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy to train on it. And once you train them one time, for the most part, they get it. Of course, they're going to have questions, a day or two later on whatever the tech is. And they just call us up. "Hey, Aaron, can you help me? I ran into this problem or this isn't working." It's like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So support on the back end is also huge. And so that's those are some of the things we're doing to, on the talent level.
I think it's cool. I think it's a niche area, and it makes a lot of sense because if you see different people who make posts on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and they're commenting about, we installed this, how many $1 million of equipment across all these different classrooms or across all these different conference rooms, and the users don't know how to use it, or I've also seen one that says, we speak to the people at the higher levels about what their needs are, but they're not the ones using the systems. And then the people who are, in the middle, or who are using those conference rooms on a day-to-day basis, we never address their real concerns.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I love it when an integrator comes to me and they're fired up. They're like, Aaron, I got this great deal. We just sold this 500 room installation. Oh my God, Aaron, there's gonna be so much work, so much training. And to me, it's like, well, how much does the technology vary per room? Oh, it's mostly the same. I'm like, great, that's an easy project because we're just creating training content one time,
Yeah.
and we've got our same, student to teacher ratios, and
Right.
and those sorts of things. And so for us, it becomes a really nice add-on to any sale, just to bring us in, and we kind of we private label our training. So it's mainly the integrator. At the end of the day, we act as their education department. And we literally will just give them a turnkey solution. Like, here's our language. Go copy and paste this and go put it in your proposal and sell it. And it becomes super easy for them. It's actually a really nice added benefit for the integrator.
That's great. Tell me, how did any of that change during the last couple of years? With, maybe less folks being inside of actual spaces in their offices and more remote. Did you do a lot of remote training and things like that for your customers?
Yeah, remote training was huge. We saw new software platforms pop up. In fact, there's a software platform called Miro, Miro, and that deals with the Kanban method of project management. We had a client come to us, a big pharma, and they said, hey, can you guys teach our end users how to use this? And it's like, sure. So we taught it to ourselves, and we created training content for it. And now we own the training content, and have trained several other clients on that software too. So per your question, yeah, a lot of virtual training going on, a lot of Microsoft Teams training going on. Obviously, Cisco WebEx training, Zoom training, just how to use it. We actually have a brand new class we just came out with, because Microsoft Teams, just like with any software, they're always updating things, right? There's always new features and new buttons, and they changed the language. I remember when they changed the language from show content to present content. Well, that can throw end users off, just the little terminology changes. So we have a new class today that we just launched. It's the top 10 things that's new in Microsoft Teams.
Oh, that's cool. I think that could, I could probably use some of that myself.
Yeah, I think actually one of the cool things off the top of my head that I think which was great, is that you've got the different backgrounds in Microsoft Teams. And I remember in the early days of Teams, you had to search for a folder on your desktop to figure out where to place a really cool, unique background. And today, one of the new features is when you open up the background effects, there's a button at the top that says, I think it says add file or add background or something to that effect. So, the ease of access, use of access is much easier.
I think it has to get easier so that, to make it easier as far as competition, because some of the competition is easier to use. So you've got to make everything easier, right at your fingertips, to be able to compete with some of the other giants out there.
Yeah, and that's actually, I'm glad you said that. Making things easier, because you and I will think that this stuff is super easy. Yet you go into a pharma or a research facility or a law firm, and those types of end users are really intimidated by technology.
Yeah.
And so one of the messages we constantly say to these guys is like, hey, you know what? You can't break the tech. You can break it with a baseball bat. That's about it. But just push a button. It's going to be fine. And then after the training, we have a service, we call it Hypercare, which is, it's day 2 support. It's, how do you use it? And that was, kind of what brought us together, was the the staffing part, right? And we'll leave somebody on site as day 2 support for anywhere from 2 weeks to 52 weeks. And again, they're reinforcing that instructor message, right? Hey, you can't break the technology. Hey, it's easy to use. Hey, let me show you how to do it. One of the key things with training in general is that we as adults, we learn by doing things ourselves, right? So we always say, hey, we say to our hypercares, our instructors, hey, don't do the action for the student. Have the student do it, but point to them so that they're touching the buttons themselves. They're taking that action so that they can hopefully remember to make those same movements in the future.
Right. Yeah. Like if you're showing your parent how to do something, you don't take it over. You say, click here or click here, go there. And then they learn it a little bit better versus you just kind of taking it over. Yeah. Well, tell me about your partnerships that you've got with the workforce development organizations in, where is it, Montgomery County, Anne Arundel County. Tell me about those, and how did you find those, and what's your partnership like?
Yeah, so we found Anne Arundel County about probably like 5 or 6 years ago, just randomly. I was in a program through the SBA called Emerging Leaders, and Emerging Leaders is the SBA bills it as MBA in a box, and it ends up being a terrific networking session. But the program is designed for VPs and entrepreneurs and business leaders. And through one of my friends there, she recommended me, or she invited me to a meeting, I think, with the folks at Anne Arundel County Workforce Development. And next thing you know, we're doing CompTIA certification training for them. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. It ended up being, for us, from a training standpoint, a new revenue stream. And in forming relationships, I kept on telling them, hey, how great the AV industry is and how there's a shortage of labor. And they said, Aaron, if you hire anybody from our program, we'll pay you for it. I was like, really? How does that work?
Right.
and I ended up hiring a project manager through Anne Arundel County many years ago, even though my business is based in Montgomery County. And next thing you know, they're paying, I was hiring a PM for, I don't know, call them $60,000 a year. And the county reimbursed me like $10,000. And I'm like, that's pretty sweet. And I was like, holy smokes. And then next thing you know, we're calling up Montgomery County, Maryland and PG County, Maryland, and they had similar programs.
Right.
And recently I just hired a new instructor, and I was able to get a nice, I think it was like $15,000 from, PG County, Maryland, because the person was a PG County resident. And the jobs of all these county workforce development programs is not only to retrain the workforce and to get these guys started up, but to also get them jobs. So all these workforce development agencies, their goal is to, make sure the people that live in their counties are working. Right now, I'm trying to find somebody to work for us in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I reached out to Alameda County, California, and I'm in talks with them about how to, recruit talent from their group. I can't tell you today if they have any programs, but I do know, I suspect there are. And if there are, to me, that's just a bonus. Yeah. But I think we all can agree, finding labor is one of the toughest things to do out there. You put an ad out on Indeed or LinkedIn, you're going to get a zillion resumes, right?
Yeah.
To me, I'd rather help somebody that might be either disadvantaged or been unemployed for a while, and they're trying to figure life out. And they might be a good employee. They just don't know about Indeed and these other mechanisms for recruitment. Right.
But even though they don't know about those mechanisms for recruitment, they are still really good hires.
They really aren't. There's actually this gal that I think she was through Anne Arundel County. We interviewed her several months ago. We put her through one of our CompTIA boot camps, and one of the integrators reached out to us, and they needed a level 1 AV person on site for a full-time position. She was terrific. She had the personality. She was likable. I'd want to go drink a beer with her after work. So she had that personality. She was coachable. She's hungry. We trained her up on, I think in this case, it was a Microsoft Teams environment with Polycom hardware. And next thing you know, she got a full-time job with the integrator. It was a really good story.
That's great. I love stories like that. And I think that we need more stories, because there's so many things at play right now, right? There's the fact that there was a labor shortage before COVID. Now everybody's kind of been rearranged over the last couple of years, and some people have left. Some people have left and come back. Some people are finding their way to our industry new. So how do we find those folks, and how do we bring them in? And then there is another whole thing about diversity, diversity and equity inclusion. And I think going through some of the county programs are going to help with some of those things as well, because there may be people, like the young lady you mentioned, there may be people that you maybe would not have known to reach out to before, or she may not have seen that ad, or, when you're reaching out to your buddy about a position, that's not the person that comes to mind to put her in that position. So I think there's so many different layers, with staffing, with recruiting, with training new people to bring them in, that we haven't addressed yet, and that we need to address it. So I'm really happy to be talking to you about this.
Yeah, it was funny. I'm glad you brought that up. I was talking with an integrator, an HR department the other day, and we
Mm-hmm.
talked about how to recruit young people. And it was right around the same time that I think NSCA and rAVe are coming out with a really cool program. It's a really nice training program to retrain. I don't know about retrain, but they're training the workforce on how to use AV stuff.
Okay.
And one of the things that I liked about it was like, hey, wouldn't that be great to replicate that in colleges and universities?
Mm-hmm.
Go directly to the athletic departments, go directly to the AV departments, go directly to the IT departments, right? And teach these guys coming out of school so they have jobs right away when they're graduating, right? And maybe it's a 6-month training program, maybe it's a 1 day a week for 6 months, or whatever the time frame is, but we can all put it together. And I've thought long and hard about this recently, so I think it would be a great idea to get more young people in the industry directly from colleges. Even at the high school level, we participate here in Montgomery County with it's called the AOIT Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
which is where high school kids, they earn it's a vocational program through the county school system. And they've got about 15 or 20 different programs, from automotive to IT to plumbing to culinary and so on. And I sit on the board for the IT Foundation, and I'm constantly telling these guys, all right, hey, we got to get rid of this certification and move to this certification, right?
Yes.
And try and help them maneuver around the certification, because government, as we all know, they're a few years behind the industry on where trends are. So it's up to us as business leaders to educate them, like, hey, this is where we need to go.
Right. This is what you really need. You don't really need this one, but you do really need this one. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what are some of the pros and cons of bringing people into your organization and other organizations through these different programs?
Yeah, one of the pros, at least through the workforce development programs, is that there's so much federal money out there that you'll get reimbursed at the end of the day. Now, if you're talking about a super large, company, they probably don't care about $10,000. But for most of the small and medium sized guys, I mean, that's a nice chunk of change to get.
Right.
So there is a lot of free money out there. You just got to, call up your local county's workforce development group, see if they have any. And if they don't, dollars to donuts, no pun intended, they'll know where to send you. So I think that's going to be key. I think that's a pro. Other pros are it helps you think outside the box in terms of recruiting. Right. I remember when I was coming out of school, where did I go for recruiting? Monster.com. Monster was the bomb.com back then. Mm-hmm. Today, I'm not sure. I think Monster.com is still in business, but I haven't looked for a job and I haven't heard anybody recruiting from them in years. So you got to know how to evolve. But at the same time, we need to be smarter than the average bear as recruiters and look to see what else is out there. So we've got, we have obviously Indeed, we have LinkedIn, we've got the workforce development. I think there's great services out there like Field Nation, and I know Field Nation is mainly used for short-term labor. Mm-hmm. I think they're a great product. There's just AV Heroes, another one. I mean, there's a lot of cool companies out there doing nice things.
Yeah, great.
So, and then I guess the con, mm-hmm. I can't think of any cons, right? We need to think outside the box. I remember being at an NSCA event a few years ago, and they honored an integrator for thinking outside the box, because what they were doing for recruitment was they were hiring people in the construction business, which I thought was a terrific idea. We like to hire folks. I mentioned a lot of folks where we recruit them from, but backgrounds that we look for are actors and actresses. And again, this is for on-site meeting support. That's kind of a little niche, but actors and actresses, waiters and waitresses, folks that where you have to think on your feet on a regular basis and be customer centric and customer savvy.
Right. That to me, I came from the hospitality industry, from hotels and convention centers, and it's very customer service oriented. And to me, it just sounds very much the same. You have to take care of the customer when you're doing training. You have to be patient. You have to have the knowledge and have the information and have a personality where they actually want to learn it from you.
Yeah, hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. I mean, some people you don't even want to learn from them because their personality is so crap. So,
Yeah, and for us being a small business, like if the first time we do a bad job, I know I'm out of business. And so that's why having a good personality is key. Having people that are process oriented is key.
Yeah.
So
I would imagine an actor too, though, they could, if some of us in technology don't feel comfortable with doing a lot of talking and being in front of customers. But, a lot of folks who want to stay on the technical side don't feel as comfortable maybe as a salesperson might, So what I would assume as an actor, you could kind of not fake it till you make it, but you can act like you're in that role and it's working for you too.
yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, actors and actresses can make adjustments, by the snap of their fingers, because that's what their training's all about, right? They have to get into character.
Right. Yeah, I love it. I think it's great what you're doing, and I think I want to try to list out, where those programs are in Maryland. I know DC has a program too, with the Department of Employment Services has a similar program too that I was looking up, and I know that there's got to be other programs all around the country. So hopefully we can get some folks to kind of add to that list for their areas, and we can kind of get some information going for people around the country who might be looking for talent and not really sure where they should look.
Yeah, and also just to undo any misconception, if you're a company based in California, Texas, Arizona, wherever, and you want to hire somebody in Maryland for a job in the DC area, right? As long as they're a Maryland resident, all these groups, they'll still reimburse you as an employer for hiring them. So, which is super cool. It's all county specific. It's all focused on the employee, not necessarily the employer.
Yeah, on where the employee lives versus that makes sense. That's a good clarification to make too, because there are probably people who will have, jobs in all these different areas and they don't know where to go. They don't know where to look. And they can also call you if they need some assistance too.
Yeah, give me a buzz. I'll be happy to help you and point you in the right direction and make introductions. I do it pretty regularly and I'm happy to. I really am.
Great. Well, Aaron, we're going to wrap up. I want to thank you so much for being here and talking about this. Anything else you want to share with our audience about what you do?
No, I guess one other thing, another cool website to check out is grants.gov. It's a really cool website. There's all sorts of free money out there for small business owners. Grants.gov is a really good one. So if you're if you're a manufacturer and you're creating a new product, if you're, have a new idea, new software, whatever it is, check out grants.gov. There's a ton of free money out there for inventions too.
That's great.
And so you can hire people.
It's great. It's I think that there probably more money opened up for small businesses and for businesses at large over the last couple of years too, as a result of COVID and, the CARES Act and all the different, everything just opened up for people to be able to stay in business and to start a business and keep their business going,
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too. I'd also recommend for business owners to get in touch with their local chambers of commerce, because you never know what type of funding is coming down from the state. Recently in Maryland, the state of Maryland gave Montgomery County $800,000 to hand out to small businesses, and there was an application process, and the goal was to give every business $10,000
Mm.
for teleworking. And this was literally like a month or two ago, and we're in February 2022. There's still a lot of free money out there. You just got to know about the programs. How do you find out about the programs? A great place to start is your local chamber of commerce.
Great, 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 great. Well, tell everybody how they can reach you. Are you on the socials?
Yeah, hit me up on social media. I think my LinkedIn is just Aaron Udler. I think I'm the only Aaron Udler in the United States. And then my Twitter is also at Aaron Udler.
Okay, great, 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 great. Well, thank you for being here. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I just have a passion about finding people, bringing people, young people, new people, diverse people into our industry, and I just can't stop talking about it because I know that we're going to get there where we need to be, where people will stop saying, "I couldn't find anybody. I couldn't find anybody," and it's like, how can you not? How can you say you can't find anybody? Let's put all these, breadcrumbs out there for people to find the right folks.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head, and actually, I'll share one other story. Actually, I've got about 5 stories combined into one.
Okay.
There's one big pharmaceutical company that we consistently put level 1 support into, hypercare support, and these are all contractors. And I've had one very large AV integrator hire all 5 within the past 6 months, and it's just it's just good to get people trained up. And if you have clients out there that you can afford to put an entry level person in that's got that personality, that's hungry to learn, and then you can move them around, because people today, they're still hungry to work, believe it or not.
Yeah, great.
So,
great.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And I know that there's more conversations that we can have around this too. So hopefully we can catch back up again toward the end of the year, and you can give us some more success stories.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, Alexis.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we're going to share those links so that you can see some of the resources here in the DMV. And hopefully you can add some of the resource areas that you're aware of in your areas too, in your cities and states. And I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Alexis AV Talk. Let's talk about workforce development. Alexis AV Rock. You're invited to the #1 event with Alexis Love.